and he met Srila Prabhupada first time in 1973, and he accepted the initiation from His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada on Janmashtami Day in 1977. And since then, Maharaj is offering valuable services to ISKCON in many ways, like the construction of Srila Prabhupada's 3 main temples in Vrindavan, Mayapur, and Bombay. Maharaj donated a lot of fund for that. And when His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Guru Maharaj was shooting Abhay, so Maharaj, at Maharaj home only in US, the 40-member film crew of Abhay stayed in his home, and for a few months they were there. Maharaj is initiating a spiritual master, and his mood is taking on the service of becoming an initiating guru will enable him to perform his service better and will enliven him. So we are very fortunate. Maharaj had very close relationship, friendship with His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Guru Maharaj as well. So we will be happy to hear from Maharaj. Hare Krishna. So Maharaj, we would like to welcome by loudly one time chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, am I audible properly?
Yes, you are okay. So I will begin. It gives me great pleasure and privilege to speak about His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj, who is so dear to us. Still, his memory will always remain eternally with us. He was so close, so friendly, and he has helped us in many, many ways in growing in the spiritual community or in the ISKCON community. And it was a great shock when Maharaj left and we heard his news about departing from this world. So I had a lot of privilege of seeing him in Ujjain and America and many places, particularly in Tobacco Temple at our own home for almost 4 months. But at this, so I would like to describe some of those meetings with myself and Maharaj. So I was told to speak more about the Maharaj's unique contribution, that was Abhay Charan series. So Hema Malini told Maharaj one time that rather than having little clips or making a movie, you should make a whole serial that will go weekly. So he made like 45 episodes. So it was aired for 45 times, and many people, they were standing on the streets and watching Maharaj's like about Srila Prabhupada's life of Abhay Charan series. So I'm very happy that I could help him in some way or help the whole crew. They were there. So one was Mr. Somya Julu and many devotees that Maharaj would send advertisement for people to participate in the movie. Some of the family members also participated. I had a meeting with Srila Prabhupada, and that was reacted by my brother's children. Like they became Shamik Rishi and Anartha and children, and in this way, I was taking prasadam with Maharaj all the time. He's such a wonderful folk. He will always invite such friendly nature. So everything at my home was like as a temple. He will start like with chanting, Bhagavatam class, how to remember verses. And so people were living all over. And Maharaj was in a very jolly mood. He asked me to buy certain few vehicles for him, which I did. But main importantly, that Maharaj's relationship with those devotees, Maharaj's teaching, Maharaj's love to those devotees who were coming to participate in this Abhay Charan series was very, very wonderful. I learned so many things from him, and still it is all in my memory. So I will never forget his unique qualities of loving, friendship, honor to his own God brothers, him seeing equally to everybody. And he met many devotees while they were acting or enacting at our home. And just like Yadunath that I remember, he was at our home, and then he became his disciple also, Maharaj's disciple, and still he is preaching in New York area and other places. So that was Abhay Charan series. So Maharaj will cook himself morning, evening, delicious meals, and he will take all those things for the movie when he is going outside. So these preparations were taken by him. He will direct, not only direction, and he's the uh, not only director, but also he's the producer. But he taught all these people what to say, how to take this. I never saw shooting of the serials or movies. So that is also for me, it was a great learning. But Swami Ajulu, he will forget, and Maharaj would have to take so many times the episodes again and again to make it that it is corrected. So in this way, Maharaj made this serial, and then devotees, they were distributed. They were in a package and a nice box, nice container, and that was distributed to many people. Many people bought us. So that is one of these important part was about Abhay Charan series. Then another was that his uh, like unique quality of, he is very inspirational. Also at the same time, he's very entrepreneur. His singing, his bhajans, we still means everybody listens. Particularly, His Holiness. He There was one time. Gurupad, from whom I took my second initiation, he was at our place and in Khargon in Madhya Pradesh. And then he told me that while he was in Vrindavan, in all the streets or in all the even Vrindavan temple, many people, even the guards and everybody would listen when they were aired the first time, that they were listening to his bhajans. So such a sweet, melodious way that he was singing. And so that is another his contribution. His voice is sweeter than the honey, and he immortalized many of our Acharya prayers. So that is his second contribution to us. That is very important. His bhajans and his renditions of the songs, particularly songs of separation, that he will sing songs of separation from the gopis have separation, which is given in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Tava kathamratam tatta jivanam. So that was, he was singing all the time. Kavi bhiriditam kalma shapaham shravana mangalam srimadatam bhuvi grananti ye purida jana. So the nectar of your words and the description of your activities are the life and soul. So Maharaj would put those in his own life also, and those suffering of this material world. These narrations, transmitted by learned sages, eradicate one of the sinful reactions and bestow good fortune upon whoever hears them. So these narrations are broadcast all over the world and are filled with the spiritual power. Certainly, those who spread the message of the Godhead are most munificent. So Maharaj imbibed those teachings from Srimad Bhagavatam in his own life, and he dedicated his life for serving Srila Prabhupada. And so he was so dear to Prabhupada that Prabhupada will reveal his innermost things, that he wanted to take parikrama before departing from this world of Govardhan. He wanted to go to Rishikesh, and Maharaj went with him to Rishikesh. And there's another part, important part that I remember was translation of all this, his work that he has done in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and so many other books, Nectar of Devotion, and translate them into Bengali. So he did translate all of those, taking taking a lot of pain, trouble waking up earlier, and like hardly sleeping for 2.5 hours. So all day, plus taking care of all his movement. So not only that he was a GBC, but also he was a chairman of the GBC. He took this, he put his aim was to keep the ISKCON intact. Everybody cooperate together. So his main thing that he wanted, that his God brothers and everybody, they commit themselves to the service of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada that said that my love for me would be shown by how you cooperate together. And he tried himself, not only he tried, but he helped others to cooperate and come to a unique decision on anything to run this movement. And so So he did everything for pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. He will say that if Prabhupada was here, what he will like, what he would have done. So we could understand what he would like by so many of his lectures, so many of his letters, so many of his books, so many of his talks. So in this way, so we cannot really, we have no words to provide solace when we are facing this separation from such a glorious Vaishnava, but we can take some comfort in the fact that now His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj is with Srila Prabhupada and he's continuing his service to Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan and Shri Shri Radha Shyam Sundar. So sometime what is plan of Krishna, it is hard to understand that, but whatever Krishna is doing, we have to accept that it is Krishna's plan and he's taking his pure duties and he will go certainly by his so much service at definitely at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna and his Vaikuntha Lokar, wherever he is there in the another universe. So now service and separation that we have, that we hear that from these poems or Gopi Gita and so many other places, that our main aim is service in separation, that we cannot be together. The period of separation evaluated transcendently is more relishable than the actual meeting, which lacks the feeling of increased anticipation. Because the lover and the beloved are present, so there is no anticipation, but in separation there is anticipation. So whatever instruction, so service can be done by Vani and Vapu. Vapu is means for the body, but Vapu is not there, but we have his instruction, how he led his life. If we continue what he has done and increase it more and more, that is the most important part. So devotees, we should not take his instruction very cheaply. That is the business of the Sahajiyas. And so just as the Radhika went mad at the sight of the Uddhav, so Lord Chaitanya was also obsessed by day and night with the madness of separation. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu shows himself in his life that how just seeing some mountain sand dunes, he thought that it is a Govardhan Parvat and he ran towards that. So we also have to do our part of service to His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj or our Guru Maharaj, and he's like my Siksha Guru. He's the one who helped me in many, many ways. Say particularly, I'm like building a temple and he helped me in that. And he said that I just a day before he left India, I spoke to him on phone and he says he will definitely come help us in this installation of the deities and opening of the temple, and he will bring all his crew from Ujjain. So I was very consoled and helpful, but I am sure that devotees who are there in Ujjain and other places will certainly help in opening our temple. But another part was, so in separation, in meeting and separation, these two things are there. Since in separation, you have more feeling, more emotions, more bhav, that how Krishna, how to love, that loving feeling is increased more and more and more. That we see in the life of Srimati Radharani, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Maharaj always looked good qualities in everyone. He never criticized anyone. And he initiated a lot of my family members also, Chaitanya, Ishwar, and many others. And so he opened our eyes. Chakshudan Dilo Jai Janme Janme Prabhu say. So to many of his disciples and other devotees, and whatever he said is very thoughtful, very straightforward, and his cooperation is very much appreciated with everyone. And so with Vipralamba Bhav, now what we should do? So that may be the question, that what we should be doing. So doing that, like he started some projects. So if we take care of those different projects, like Ujjain temple, he built within just 9 months. So that temple is running, the food distribution that he did. So that should be continued. And others, and not only continued, but it should be, everything should be increased. Now his temple Ujjain, there is a place called Nagziri, There he's making a lot of like singhasans and ditis and fiberglass ditis, and Prabhupada practically all over the world, the people who are getting this Prabhupada murtis and other so many altars and parampara of the deities. So he's parampara of Guru Parampara. So that is all means many important projects. And so his disciples are cooperating together, not only disciples, but it's a vacuum now for everyone. But if we take those services, what he has started and glorify him, attach to those, then that would be that would be great. That would be service in separation. That will please His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj. Is a not only visionary, that he saw that how the ISKCON would grow forward, what has to be done, is very inspirational for every one of us. If we read and glorify him, or read his about his books, letters, or his life, if we see that how much inspirational he is, and is loved by all over in ISKCON and all over the world is loved, and they are all missing him. And we will continue to miss him. But our main aim is to, yes, to feel vacuum is one thing, but to follow in his footsteps is another thing. So that is what we have to do. So when the gopis were crying in separation from Krishna, that is a greater happiness than meeting Krishna. This is the Krishna, our philosophy, and that how we could serve. So that is the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's descendants, our line of God realization is that separation, filling up. So we should feel, yes, we are separated, that is fine. But if we continue and remember him more and more and engage in his loving service, so we should not say that Krishna is in my hand. It's better than worship by direct meeting. So that is the Vipralamba Seva. So just like in meeting Vipralamba Seva, so there is one passage, O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. This is the perfectional stage of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, and eating the fruit of love of Godhead is exhibited by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One should not artificially imitate this stage, but if one is serious and sincerely follows the regulatory principles and chants the Hare Krishna mantra, the time will come when these symptoms will appear, tears will fill his eyes, he will be unable to chant distinctly the Maha Mantra, and his heart will throb in ecstasy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's system that one should not imitate this, but a devotee should long for the day to come when such symptoms of trance will automatically appear in the body. So this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So the same thing that we should feel separation, and so that is one thing, and we should long at how much service I could do to please. Just like we have a relationship with the His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj, and how to please him, that would be our so sambandha avideya would be how to act, what to act, that to fulfill his all the desires, fulfill his all the and to increase it more and more. What services he started should be done more and more. Like recently he had a place in Deland, and he was so much like feeling that their devotees are alone there, and I should not just sit myself comfortably, Jain, or let me go to see my disciples and help them. So with that mood he came, but somehow by Krishna's arrangement, he got hold of this COVID, and then he left all of us. But now that separation, it's almost a year has gone by, and so naturally the time period has gone, that is true, but we should become more and more mature, and that happens like somebody who has taken a birth has to go, that is very much true. But we have to take care of whatever work that he has left for us. So Maharaj's most cherished instruction that he took from His Divine Grace is Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, that your love for me will be shown by how you cooperate together after I am gone. And same thing is continues now also, that in Maharaj's absence, we are all reminded to take the instruction to our heart and reform our dedication to ISKCON and to each other. So now, as a servant of the Maharaj, we just again that we are here to assist all of you and all in whatever way possible to his for his disciples, and it was very important to Maharaj that we cooperate as a family in the Prabhupada service, and we remind, and it is reminded again today that although Maharaj is no longer physically present, we are all you are all protected by the shelter of the many devotees who have ready to offer you the support you may require at this time and also in the future. So I will end here. Thank you so much that you have given me opportunity to speak about His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj, who is so dear to me, and we are feeling a great vacuum, and it's a very, very heartfelt that this has happened, and there are many memories are sitting, and this loss cannot be repaired, but just by following his service, then that loss could be somehow it could be covered. So thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Maharaj, for your valuable association. Your presence reminded so many instructions of Shri Guru Maharaj, and you shared that now, Guru Maharaj, the most cherished instruction of Guru Maharaj, how we cooperate with each other as a family in ISKCON. We are very thankful for reminding this most valuable instruction, and we seek your blessings so that we can apply this instruction and continue to serve in ISKCON. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. My obeisances to all the devotees who have attending and who will be listening this. My heartfelt thanks to them for attending, and thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Maharaj.
So you
Hare
can
Krishna.
continue.
Yes, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. So we'll continue our session. Our next speaker is His Grace Shruta Kirti Prabhu. But due to some technical issues, we will not able to continue on this Zoom ID. So I'm sharing you the link for Facebook. So we will have this session continued on Facebook. So all the devotees can join Facebook. I'm just sharing the link. But tomorrow we will continue on the Zoom only. I'm just sharing the link.
Recording stopped.
It will be the same link, Bhakti Charu Swami Facebook page and SPT, GBC SPT Facebook page. Just I am sharing the link. Yes, devotees can move to this link. Our session will continue there. Hare Krishna. So we will continuing with our next speaker. Our next speaker is His Grace Shuddha Kirti Prabhu. I will give a brief introduction about Prabhuji, and we have 5 speakers today. So second is Shuddha Kirti Prabhu. So everybody knows Shuddha Kirti Prabhu. He joined in early days of Hare Krishna explosion. Soon he was the secretary of Srila Prabhupada, and he would travel with Srila Prabhupada to various countries. He noted the details of his travels, and thus he is one of the greatest speakers on Srila Prabhupada's pastimes. Yeah, Prabhuji has compiled a lot of books on pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. He has been widely preaching everywhere in the world, fulfilling Srila Prabhupada's mission. He is based in United Kingdom. So we will hear the remembrances and service in separation by Shruti Kirti Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani Nirvisesa Sanjivadi Paspita Desatani. His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj Ki Jai. So, of course, I first met Maharaj in probably 1977 right here, Krishna Balaram Mandir. At the time I was temple president in Hawaii, and I came the end of August and I stayed for I'm sure as you're going to hear again and again as people talk, he was such a gentleman, such a gentle soul, and very humble. He had so many qualities that I appreciated in Srila Prabhupada. Anyway, he was very kind to me, and he had no problem in having me help him engage in service and different things and cooking, like that. And then, of course, Prabhupada left shortly after that. I went back to Hawaii, and just to give some background, I was in Hawaii till 1980, then I was in Los Angeles till like 1983. And then by 1984, I had a wife and 3 children, so I wound up moving back to my home area. Had to get a place to rent, had to get a job. So it was at that time when I was outside of the protection of ISKCON, more or less. I was an hour away from any temple. And of course, that lifestyle, having full-time job, going every day, not being near a temple, you find yourself gradually drying up. And the internet was, of course, just starting to boom by the late 80s, into the 90s. We were all on what was called AOL, America Online. And being on the internet, somehow or other I came across the fact that Prabhupada's centennial was coming in 1996. So it was 1995. And Bhakti Charu Maharaj, he was trying to organize a program to bring all of the, we say like the disconnected devotees back. You know, all these, my godbrothers, my godsisters, and others who had found themselves in similar situations to me for one reason or another. And he started this program for the centennial that he wanted to somehow reach out to all of his godbrothers, his godsisters, to see that they would be more involved in their devotional service, feel closer to Prabhupada's society, feel closer to Srila Prabhupada. And I don't know about anybody else, but myself, I took it as an opportunity. I was, like I say, for a dozen years, I was pretty distant from the society, just going to the temple on special festival days and things like that. So it was kind of by his influence, by his pushing from afar, that I wound up coming to Vrindavan for 1996. And after over a dozen years of not coming to India, not being very involved in the society, that was the first step where I, again, got into more involved in Krishna consciousness. And more than that, it's when I began my writings, which about took 7 years, but later became a book. So that influence was very, very essential, was very important, and it had an effect on me, just getting a taste again. So that was definitely an influence of Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And then, of course, after that, I was coming back to Vrindavan. I remember I was here 2000, 2001. Radhanath Swami involved me in one of his programs here during Kartik. We went to Raval. I remember it was the first day of his pilgrimage. They had, like, at that time, 2001, 20 years ago, they had over a dozen buses all filled with the devotees. He had me speak the first day. So, again, just that little bit of taste, it helps so much. And it's something that Maharaj, Bhakti Charu Maharaj, understood very well. So then we'll fast forward into 2010, between 2010 and 2020, I started probably a half a dozen times. I would go to the Atlanta temple, which they would have the Panihati festival, which Jaipataka Maharaj made famous in different places, particularly Atlanta, where he would go to every year at that time. So because I was in the U.S. and temple president, he would invite me to come and speak 1 or 2 days about Srila Prabhupada. So just in the last few years, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, again, seeking Mahiti, he was inviting me to come to Atlanta. And one of the other persons, the big name they would invite, was Bhakti Charu Maharaj, because now this time, Jaipataka Maharaj, he wasn't traveling as much. Huh? So since that community has a large Bengali community, so they would invite Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And so I was there for, not the last Panihati, but the 2 before that. I was there for Panihati festival. And 2 years ago, I was there for the Janmashtami festival. And Bhakti Charu Maharaj was there at both of those festivals. And we stayed next door to the temple in the guest house, and I was literally right next to him. We would take prasadam together downstairs. Him and whatever Prabhupada disciples were there, we would all have breakfast and lunch together. So it was a very nice atmosphere. And him and I, we always got along very well. I would imagine he got along with everyone very nicely. But we definitely, in some ways, we would speak the same language. He would talk about Srila Prabhupada so much, and in the classes he would talk about Prabhupada. Then I would get up and talk about Prabhupada, tell different pastimes and things. And I remember each time after the class, he would come up to me and he said the exact same thing each time. He'd say, "That was amazing." He said, "That was wonderful." He said, "This class," he said, "is so nice." So in that way, it was very encouraging. But he was also, just to hear about Prabhupada, he would become so inspired wherever it was coming from. We know his book has become one of the very sought-after books, how he talks about his own feelings, his emotions, and his service to Srila Prabhupada. And so as I mentioned, 1996, he kind of brought me in. And it started a very wonderful thing where more and more I became engaged in service. So one day as we were waiting for lunch to be served, and he was sitting at the head of the table, Panchagoda Prabhu was there, Teja Prakash was there, I was there, one other devotee, all his godbrothers were there. And while we were waiting to be served, he said, "I have an idea." And it just coming for now, this 125th anniversary, he realized it was coming, Prabhupada's anniversary of his appearance 125 years ago. And he said, what I want to do, he said, is in the U.S., because now he was going to the U.S. He had that place in Florida, a farm-like community outside Orlando. And he said, I want to have a program, he said, for my godbrothers and godsisters. He said, I want them all to come. He said, I want everybody to be invited. He said, we have to figure out where to do it. He said, we can all get together for a week or so. And again, give everybody the opportunity just to engage in service and somehow reconnect. He said, wherever they are, whatever they're doing, however long they may be away, he said, let's get them here. He said, it will pay all the expenses. He said, it's going to cost a few $100,000. He said, we'll have to get a nice retreat area, pay for everybody's flight, pay for their rooms, pay for the prasadam, everything. He said, I'll seed it. He said, I'll start it with $100,000. He said, towards this program. So he said, let's all keep in touch. He said, and we should get this going. So this is what I saw again and again with Bhakti Charu Maharaj, is his appreciation, his desire to see that all of Prabhupada's followers, particularly his godbrothers and godsisters, that somehow or other we appreciate them, give them the opportunity to do some service, whatever the situation was. And again, what I always saw was this was the way Prabhupada was. I was with Srila Prabhupada for more than 2 years. It's all Prabhupada ever saw was the service we were doing. If he saw there were difficulties, of course he would correct it. Like in the class, I think the class, not the other day, but a week or so ago, I was saying, Prabhupada called me into his room during that time 12 times, saying, where is everyone? Where are the others? And they'd be taking rest. So it wasn't that Prabhupada never corrected or never chastised, but whenever he saw that anyone was starting to drift away, he would bring them back in. So this is the quality. This is a Vaishnava. And this is what I saw with Maharaj, is he had that same, didn't see any faults in others. He just saw, these are Prabhupads. These are Prabhupada's people. They're my brothers, my sisters. And he would want to engage them in service. So, somehow or other, as we all do, just like Prabhupada, back in 1977. He left us, but of course never left, as he said, the devotee. He never dies. He lives in his instructions. So Prabhupada gave us so many instructions, and I could see that Maharaj, he took to Prabhupada's instructions very, very sincerely, very purely. And as I appreciated, of course, he had the same, like Prabhupada, he was an aristocratic man, Maharaj. He came from a very nice family, and he had those wonderful qualities. He was very compassionate. He spoke very nicely, and you would have this natural attraction towards such a person as a great Vaishnava. His going, of course, is, as any devotee when they leave, any very wonderful devotee, it's always very difficult. But they leave behind their legacy, and they leave behind their example. So that example of Maharaj for me is something that is very important, very enlivening, encouraging, and just on a personal level, he inspired me so much by his desire to always serve the devotees. Not that we just take service. This isn't our thing, accepting service. Prabhupada said you have to give back. There's something, of course, I always saw with Prabhupada. Not that we're eager that people service, but we want to give service to others. So he exemplified that very much in everything he did. And over the years, he became more and more dynamic, I think, within our ISKCON society, which makes it all the more difficult for all of us. At the same time, his compassion is there, his blessings are there, the example is there, particularly for his own disciples, of what to aspire for. So this is what a Vaishnava does. They show you everything. They show you the way. They show you all the intricacies, how to develop Krishna consciousness. And they set the example. As I said, Prabhupada, I was just reading yesterday, Prabhupada was saying, the only thing I've introduced, he said, was translating books. He says that's the one thing. Everything else, he said, I learned as a child. He said, everything I'm showing you, all the examples, everything I'm doing, he said, everything in our society, he said, I was doing from childhood. He said, as my father was